My guest today is Mr. Alec Bowman, and yes, the Mr. is essential. Alec is a musician, a photographer, and a cinematographer, and we met last year in London when he took some publicity shots for me. This interview was a lot of fun to make. Alec is a fascinating guy and has a lot of insights into not only his own work, but to how the music industry works and into everything in general, really. Be prepared for some strong opinions ahead. I hope you enjoy the interview. So, hi, Alec.
Hello there, Andy. How's it going?
Pretty good, thank you. And
Good
thanks
stuff.
for joining me.
Hey, no worries. We're a proper modern friendship, aren't we? It sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah, proper online thing where we
That's
actually
what-
ended up. I don't even remember how we actually met. I think you just said something about does anyone want me to take photos of them on Twitter one day?
I think that's
And
what
I-
happened. I think you responded to that, and I don't recall
Yeah.
what the sort of web of connections was that led to that.
Yeah, no, I think it was just that. Somehow it got retweeted and maybe I saw it and and then we ended up hanging around in London, which was cool.
That was a good day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
good day.
And the
Yeah.
pictures ended up on my album and bits of them on my website and stuff. So
And you're
Yeah.
on my wall. You're looking down on us right now.
well,
Sport
I don't know
over.
if you can see this here.
Oh, you know what? I can. Okay. There you go.
So that's a picture of you that you sent me the other day, and I didn't put that there deliberately. It just happens to be there.
Oh, this
so.
is just sickening now, isn't it?
Yeah, so let's talk about the picture because we're actually meeting just as you've released your album. I used to be sad and then I forgot, which I'm going to do that horrible promo thing that they do on. It was like, there it is. Look at that lovely thing. And I love the picture. It's very, very looks like you're just sitting in some meadow and contemplating the universe, which is cool.
It's one of those photographs where there was no discussion there. When Trevor, who took it, sent me the contact sheet, I just said, "Oh, that one, then that one." So I mean, there were probably a couple of hundred photographs from that day, and they're mostly really good. That's down to Trevor's photography skills, but that was light years ahead. I was looking for something really sunny. I wanted there to be flowers in it, and I wanted it to be kind of hopeful and a bit wistful. And I mean that one photograph did all of that. It hasn't had much done to it to be on the cover. Trevor just there it was. So, yeah, it was a really nice one.
Yeah,
and a lot of people have said, I listened to it because of this. I needed to know what an album that looked like that sounded like. That's a successful cover, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because you say you want it to be sunny and flowery, but if we dig into the lyrics a little bit in some of the songs, there's a phrase that sprung to mind. Leonard Cohen once referred to himself in song as the grocer of despair.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm not saying the songs are despairing, but there's definitely
they are in places, right?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I think that's something that is what I like about it. Is what I like about a lot of music in general, actually. That there's a place for feel-good music and there's a place for sad music.
Yeah,
and there's a place for catharsis and there's a place for being sad. But I love the title. I used to be sad and then I forgot. So tell me what's that all about?
It's funny, isn't it? It got a mention last night on BBC Radio where they played it on the local show, the introducing thing. They've been really supportive and they've played a few tracks from the album, 3 or 4 tracks from the album now. And the last thing they said last night was that the title keeps springing to their mind. Like, this is an interesting title. And yeah, I mean, it was the first thing that I had. I had that title for an album a year before I had a song to go on it.
Yeah. Because that's a line from one of the songs.
Yeah, it is. But that is kind of reverse engineered.
Okay.
That was the last song I wrote for the album, and that verse was the last verse I wrote for that song. And I never wanted specifically to have the line in, but I also didn't want to not have. And when I realized that it scanned perfectly for that song, it seemed like a good place to end things. I mean, I say I didn't have the songs, but I did have the arc of the story, which I suppose is what the title is trying to say. And I guess it has a certain. I mean, you point out, you know, the lyrical content is fairly dark in places. For me, it would have just been a bit easy to have like a kind of a moody black and white picture. It isn't. It's supposed to be angry. You know, I was pretty angry, and I was pretty sad, and I haven't forgotten. I don't think anyone ever does. And I guess the push and pull of that was what I was trying to do with the title in two parts, and then with the cover too. That this isn't supposed to be an album that leaves you wanting to, you know, crash in a plane like it starts out with. Hopefully, by the end, that's a thing that you can see you don't have to do. And that was kind of my journey, which I wrote about. So, and I guess part of it as well is that the cover was it's not. I say it's not filtered. It is slightly filtered, you know, but also. That was a genuinely sunny day. I used to work for a nurseryman growing flowers. I like flowers, and so that can all be part of the thing. You know, how come an album called That has this on the cover? And I'd like to think that when you listen to it, that becomes clear. So, I also kind of think that what's like the interesting thing for me is that title. I say I had it before the album arrived, and I did like a long time. I can't remember where it came from, but it seemed like it said so much, and it kind of led to everything else, which is fascinating, isn't it? One little sentence, kind of grows.
And I think it really, kind of runs through the album. And I was thinking about it. It's not so much that you forget. It's just that as you get that feeling that you've got a bit of distance from it now, from what I'm hearing, is that you're able to now write about it, and it's come from a sense of pain. It's come from a place where you've clearly been, you know, going through some shit, and but I think it feels to me like there's a distance, and what I mean is that with the title, what it kind of says to me is that you, it's not that you forget. You never forget pain. It never goes away, but there are times when you just you're able not to think about it. It's not like a constant thing all the time. I think that's right. I think that when you talk about what forgetting means, then it's easy to think that means you just don't remember it anymore, because that's a literal translation of the word. But that's not how humans work. I mean, I don't forget things. I don't forget anything. I don't not notice anything. It's a bit of a curse in some ways, but with time, the revelator, right? It does all the things that everyone says it does. And you know, I've had conversations with people since who have said that you know, I feel really awful, terrible things going on. I'm going through some difficult stuff, and the only thing you can say is that you know, hang in there, you'll be all right in time, and that doesn't make anyone feel better now. But it is all there is. You will find in a year's time, you'll look back on this and you'll say, okay, you know, I went through some stuff. It will inform my future choices. I'm going to grow. I'm going to improve, and maybe make all the same mistakes over again. But, you know, I'll course correct that in some way. And I suppose, you know, what's the word? Arrogant as it is, I dare to hope that it's not really a message, because I didn't want it to be advice. There's no advice on my record. Don't. I tried to say all the way through in the press and everything, like, I'm no one to advise you. I don't know anything. But, you know, my experience was that you'll be all right. You're okay like you are. Keep going. And, you know, this will feel easier. So, there it is. There seems to be a theme that does run through it. You know, I think there's quite a few lyrics on the album which talk about like this kind of, there's a hopefulness, but it is also at the same time there's that tension, and I think is the title expresses really well. There is a tension of that feeling of trying not to get too hopeful, but maybe I'm wrong about that. What do you?
No, I mean, I guess that I would say that there's a cynicism around it. For sure. I struggle a bit with the question, am I an optimistic person? Because, like, absolutely, you know. Also, everything's pointless. So that's a difficult place to sit.
Yeah.
The track that has the title in as a lyric is called "Never the End of the World," and that's the one that the BBC played last night. And the guy who played it spoke to me briefly beforehand. I'm quietly hoping that he'll have me into the studio to do a little session. He suggested on air that he would, and I think that would be great.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be amazing.
I mean, for me, that particular song is the best that I can say it, and I feel like it goes. It's never the end of the world. It just goes on without you, whatever you do. Yeah. Is that an optimistic message or a pessimistic one? I'm not sure. Lots of people to hear it and say, "Oh, that's so sort of spiritually optimistic," and I feel like what I'm saying is that you simply don't matter. It doesn't matter. You can just jump up a bridge now, and it won't mean anything.
Yeah.
But also, like, try not to, and like crack on, and you'll be all right. And I don't know where that sits in the spectrum of.
For me, I mean, something I also kind of have gone through, over time in my life, coming to realise that you are completely pointless in the universe. But it's sort of what you do that, and in some ways, there's a real comfort actually in knowing that you're not immortal. You don't have to deal with it forever, but you can also really just have amazing times as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. The things that you do matter. You're noticed. You're a person. You have as much right to be paid attention to, and as anyone else, anyone famous or not famous, they're all the same. Everyone's the same, and all the stuff that comes along and gets layered on top of that is just all like total bullshit. And whether or not like it's more interesting to talk to you or to my sister or to Jeff Bezos, they're all the same. They're all the same. They all have just, get my sister on. She has interesting stuff to say, and
I think everybody does. And
I guess I wanted it to. I knew that it would be an album that wouldn't be like a one that would appeal to everyone. I wasn't trying to make it that. I was trying to make it the best one of itself that it could be. Like to make the decisions that would lead to that. And well, I mean, the backlash hasn't started yet, so it's common, right?
I hope not. Yeah. I mean, backlash is better than being forgotten, I suppose. So
for a narcissist like me, that's definitely true, right? Because isn't that true as well? The idea that like this is an attention-seeking thing. I made some art and put it in, paid money. Thousands of pounds to put it in the world. Attention-seeking arsehole. I mean, but then like whinging about that on the album, it's ridiculous.
I don't know. It's interesting. I was talking to someone else about this, and I forget which interview it was, but we were talking about this kind of thing as to whether what our motivation is, is it that just we want to be like amazing and everyone to love us, or is it that we want to give something to the world, or whatever? And in the end, I just think it doesn't really matter. You did it. It's creative, and it's something that you did, and all of us have, impure motives. In no one's clean, as you said.
No, I think that's right, and I don't think there was a choice here. This wasn't a thing that what's the right way to say that? Like I was going to do this. This was going to happen. Yeah. And whether or not that was, now or in a worse way. I mean, I recorded it in a studio and paid to have it mastered and paid to put it on Spotify. But so those are just the things that you do. They seemed like decisions to get it out into the world. But it existed. It was all somewhere. I just kind of found it. Dragged it down to
I think it's ultimately it's a gift anyway. Music and art is a gift to other people, no matter where it came from. I think about pop music, I really don't mind pop music at all. I have no problem with people who create feel good pop music. They're giving something that somebody wants, and that's okay. It's all too easy to be sort of precious about these things, and I just think it's cool that people want to create something. Ultimately.
I think everyone that wants to should be allowed to do that. It is allowed to do that. I mean, I've certainly heard expressed the view that, the opposing view to that maybe you don't have a right to make this. You don't have the qualifications or the skills,
Yeah.
like good enough to do this. When I look around at the music that I listen to, I mean, like, I'm very grateful that people ignore that and say to anyone who would accuse anyone else of not having the right to make art, that's just not okay. It's wrong, and people do it anyway. So that was the struggle I had. That I had to decide to do it anyway against some of it, and that's what you're hearing there. So
I think you do. I definitely think you do, and I really dislike this kind of gatekeeping and pile-on culture that people get. Of like belittling someone, like Billie Eilish, right? It's a great example. She's a young girl. I think she's really talented. She's putting her stuff out there. She's having fun. She's doing it, and the amount of shit that she gets is just unbelievable. And there's a line in one of her songs that if they knew the words they said would go right to my head, that maybe they'd say something else instead, or something like to that effect. And I think it's like, just because she's a big star doesn't mean she doesn't feel it when you're nasty, So,
yeah, I mean, there's a place. There's all kinds of, like, music is art. Music is not a competition, right? And so many people think that it is, and there's no winner. No one gets to make the best or the last art. Yeah. It's just going to keep going. I think Villagers tweeted this morning, the best music is yet to be made. And like, I mean, I felt really, I felt kind of gutted and elated at that. It seemed like a wonderful tweet. I must retweet it actually. Because like what I thought, wow, yeah, he's probably right. And lovely.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever get to a point where you think, oh, no one should ever produce any more music. I mean, even if you hear the best song ever, and you think, that's not my best song ever, it's not like I'll just stop listening to music after that. It's like, I'm still going to discover other things.
That's right. Kids will come along and they'll do something new that expresses what they feel. And I mean, the problem I have is that the ones that you kind of hear about are the ones that are in a place to get that message out, because they have the resources and the relations and stuff. And I feel like what I would like to see is that music and art became a meritocracy where you could get some kid who had a great idea, and it should be possible. Bandcamp's kind of free to use, so the growth of places like that, I'm hoping in 10 years' time lead to a leveler playing field. I
think there is to some extent already, and it does enable people to make art with the platforms that are out there, and we can definitely have our opinions on platforms like Spotify and YouTube and so on. However, commercially it's suicide not to do that. So if you want to, you kind of have to play along with it, even though you can still continue to fight to make it better. That said, the exploitative nature of the old style record companies, where nobody owned their music, nobody owned the rights to use it, everyone had their controlled image, they couldn't make what they wanted, they didn't have artistic control. Those days are pretty much gone. They just that doesn't exist anymore. You make the art you want to make and you put it out, and if people buy it, then cool. That's
I mean, I guess I've seen some pretty interesting examples of the way that the music industry works from a sort of as insider point of view as I can be over the last couple of years. And there's some shocking stuff out there, because you know what? It's not quite as gone as you'd think. Like the way it's presented is that, you've got all these kind of artisanal punk rock indie labels who are like all nice to the artist, and artisanal. How am I saying that right? You can edit artisanal.
Artist anal.
I think leave it, actually.
Yeah, I think leave it.
I mean, it doesn't. It's not. It's a stinking shithole of an industry which still works much like you would like to think it didn't.
Right.
And
I was more referring to like the fact that you don't have to go that route.
You don't have to do that. Yeah, true.
And there are people who've. I'm probably looking at it with a bit of rose-tinted glasses, but I think you can succeed and you can do things without having to do that. And I see some creators being able to do that. People who I really like, who have come to my attention, have built massive followings because of the technology available. But it's not something everyone gets to do. So I think,
and
I get it why people do the label system. I totally get it.
it's kind of held here as a like, look what you could have if you just come over here. And the reality of that is so far from what you'd think it should be. And the good news part of it is that Bandcamp does exist. And like I don't want to really kind of go off on a big Spotify rant. We all know what's the story. I mean, I put my album there. It's got on a couple of really good playlists, and it's had a few thousand views, which is a few thousand plays, which is amazing. And I think that helps me to sell more. The more plays I get there, the more sales I make on Bandcamp. It costs me money to go there. I'll never I won't break even on the release anyway, but then I didn't need to because I have a different job. Yeah. So that's okay. I don't think Spotify can carry on paying out in the way it does at the moment.
I mean, I definitely would like to see that change. That's for sure.
I can't. The problem I have with that is that I don't want to complain. So let's say I have some followers on Twitter who want to know what it is that I'm doing and they want to buy my record. They're my supporters. It's kind of a nonsense for me to go to them and say, oh, I hate Spotify. I don't get any money from it. It's well annoying.
Yeah.
Those are the people that give me money for my music and they like it. Or maybe they hate it and they want to know about that. Yeah. But like they're the supporters. So complaining to them doesn't make any sense. And I think that's probably true however big you get. So there's this like you're kind of preaching to the wrong people. They're not even in the choir. They're actually just like your family behind you. So I my problem is that I can't quite picture how the broken record fixed streaming movement is going to gather enough traction to do anything because
I think some of the maybe some of the big artists will be able to force it, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to tell. And for me, I think it's the choice of every artist, but whether to do that or not. But I do still think that as you say, if people want to listen to your stuff, then you need to put it where they're going to listen to it.
Yep.
And that's about it, really. So you mentioned a different job. I mean, I should probably say that not only are you a musician and all of that, but you're a photographer and a cinematographer as well. And that's sort of mainly what you do.
That's what pays the bills. Not at the moment. Nothing's paying the bills at the moment, but that's the day job. Yeah.
Do you think that when you make when you make films and when you're making videos, quite often you do music video, but other things as well. Does it affect your music? Do you think visually when you make music, or do you think musically when you make movies? How is it? How do they relate, or are they just completely separate things that don't?
I mean, it's a fascinating question, and I feel like the answer is different with every single one. Like weirdly, sometimes I could give you examples of where like what happens with a song is that I know how the video goes, so all we have to do is shoot that and make it. I could give you examples of where the only thing I know is that it has to be outside and kind of dark. So we go there and then roll some tape and see what we get. I'm actually talking to a couple of people. I'm working on, a few projects at the moment, which are possible in lockdown, because you can imagine what will happen. Working on some scripts and making short films. And
cool.
One kind of fascinating element is that working on so if someone else has written a script and then I'm going to film it and score it. So like the idea that you would storyboard a short film and then make the score for it is pretty new to me. What I'm finding is how interesting the two things are when they're related to each other. So I can make a decision that this scene lasts for 1 minute, and so you're going to see this and hear this. But what if it was 40 seconds? How can I do that? The idea that there has to be an audio and a visual match. Like the sheer kind of control and detail that's possible with that is just exhilarating. I mean, I'm sort of irritated that I've waited so long to try making a short film, actually. But it's not the same every time. It doesn't always work that you kind of shoot it and then go away and decide how to play the music. I've done that, but it's almost like too big a subject to contemplate in one go.
Yeah. But I mean, I think some of the, like, just thinking about some of the songs and some of the music videos you've made, and you've made quite a number of videos for different people. I'm thinking of a couple that you've made for or with Josie and Clark, and there's I just love the way that you can hear a song and you don't have any idea in your mind really how the music really relates to an image. You have your own images when you hear it, but then when you watch the video, you think, "Oh, that's it. That's the thing," and that's kind of the. I don't know how you do that, but I think that's a really fascinating process to be able to say, "Okay, this is what this thing tells me, and this is how we make it to actually look like that."
I mean, I think that's a kind of. It's a great example because that's what I was considering when I answered you before. And actually, we could sort of talk through them in order, and I could tell you how those things came about. But what it would be a different way every time. So a couple of times, Josie has said to me, "What happens in this video is that I'm holding something and I'm doing this with it, and then what I want it to be is." Like my journey of understanding, and there's light here or not here. So all I have to do is say, okay, well, then we'll do this, and we set it up. In other cases, what's happened is that I have come up with a concept from listening to the song. Maybe like you just described, you kind of know from this song what you want to see. And so then I can say, okay, what we're going to do is that you're going to be there and we're going to make this happen. And, sometimes they have people, sometimes they don't, and all those variations of things. And I think that coming up with a concept that you can realize and then just getting it done, there's so many things that could stop you along the way. And I feel like the leap of faith that this is the idea, so let's just have that idea, film that idea, edit the idea, and there. And then call it done, and that's that. And I don't want to be disappearing down rabbit holes of, the light's a little wrong, or we need to go and reshoot something. I mean, I've done all of those things, but try and stay focused on what we are trying to achieve.
I was thinking about this in terms of like a process of building something. Is it, when I write a song, for me, it's usually a very difficult, long process of putting stuff down and editing it and making it and redoing it again and deleting it and then doing it again and then giving up completely and doing something else. But
I mean, that sounds about right. Yeah.
But is it the same? Is it the same kind of thing? Do you have a same kind of process when you work with photography or cinema? Because it's like photographs, like you take 700 photographs, that's 700 takes, like of a song, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, that is exactly what happens. I mean, on a photo shoot, I've worked with photographers who take very small numbers of pictures, and we spend half an hour getting this picture right, and then we take it twice, and we know one of them's going to be superb, and that's not my approach. And well, as you well know, we took a lot of photographs, not because what happens is that you are probably going to delete 70% of them because you forgot to press a button or some, the light's terrible. But we live in a world where I have 256 gigabytes inside my camera, and I have enough time to look through 1,000 pictures and delete 600 of them, which are all out of focus and terrible. And that one where it's not, though, that's worth it, right? That's the thing.
That is definitely it.
Yeah. And I don't really see that that's any different. The process you described of writing a song is exactly how I do it. It's exactly how Josie Ann does it too. And I think I feel a bit like if you do it that way, then you're doing something right because you're exercising the quality control needed. Like if what you did was you sat down and wrote a song and you just thought, oh yeah, I've written this song and it's really great. So it's done, brilliant, cool. Next song. Oh, this one's really great too. They're probably not. That's probably a lie. You're probably kidding yourself. I think the artistic endeavor for me needs to have a holy fuck, what am I doing? I am not qualified for this. I'm going to sell everything I own and just go and learn to make shoes. And then the next morning you wake up and you realize, oh, actually, no, that's quite a good first line. Like where I go with it, it's terrible and I need to delete that because it's rubbish. But actually, the first line implies this, and then you can carry on. I think that's it's a bit torturous, you know. But
yeah, definitely.
I think it's a good sign.
Yeah. Do you think visually when you write songs? I mean, for instance, for me, you know, I'm thinking of song. There's a couple of songs on the album. One is like Physics and Form, and another one, the Event Horizon of You. Both of those are very vivid in their imagery, in what they kind of portray. For me, at least, they do bring up specific images. Is it something that was in your mind when you wrote those images? And if you did it, would it then, you know, just make a movie out of it? It would translate, or is it something much more abstract when you write music?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel like it's not visual. Mm-hmm. I mean, both of those songs came about because of the first line. That's a way that happens for me, sort of in 6 out of 10 songs. The other common way is a chorus. I love like a sing-along chorus. I'm a huge fan of 80s power ballads. I imagined Patience on the album as being this kind of huge Frank Turner sing-along moment with everyone's lighters in the air, and it really isn't, is it? But that's what I was trying to write, and I think Physics and Form, I can see that. I get why it's a very visual song. For me, it's a really literal song. Okay. That was all. I'm not. It's not a metaphor. That is what I was doing and thinking at the time. So it's pretty straight, and then no, I don't think I do consider it to be. I don't have a visual side for those two things. I think that's what I was trying to say before, that they are like weirdly separate. It's a whole different kind of discipline. It requires a different part of my brain. I can't do both things at once. I kind of love the shift, the mental kind of twist of moving from one thing to the next. But what I won't do, I've never done anyway, is sat with like Ableton and Premiere opened and worked on the same thing at once. It's always going to be that I am working on the visual side of things, trying to get timings right and pacing right. And if something needs to happen with the audio, then I'll go and do that with the audio later and then come back to it. It's a totally different discipline. I mean, I did have an idea, a concept for a video for the Event Horizon of You, which is based on a dream. But I mean, it's unfilmable unless you're, I don't know, Terry Gilliam or something. So it's not that there's no visual, that I don't have a concept of the visual side of it. But like writing those songs was words. It was all the words.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting. Does it mean that you have? I'm going to ask you a funny question, and I'm going to dig into it. So. Do you think you have different heroes for cinema and different heroes for photography and different heroes for music, or are heroes completely irrelevant to you?
I mean, it is an interesting question, isn't it? And you know it is too. You've read the sleeve notes, right?
I've read the sleeve notes.
I mean, I feel there's a few different ways to go in answering this, and I feel like taking the most kind of controversial and difficult one, which is to stick with the story that I wrote, which was like there's no such thing, like fuck the whole concept of a hero. I mean, I don't actually like live by that. There are directors and cinematographers and photographers and musicians that I think are terrific. But the more I kind of explore making things myself, the less reverential I feel towards those people. That's not the same, I think, as respectful of art and like another word for impressed. I mean, like a, I don't know, choose any artist that I like, and yeah, they're really great. They've done a superb job. And cool, good, great. So I've hundreds of other people that I've never heard of. It's not a competition. I've not heard of the best musicians in the world, I'm sure. Maybe no one has. Maybe the best musicians in the world died without ever recording a note. And maybe the best directors in the world never had enough money to buy a camera. And so they would have made something even better than my favorite film, which I don't even know what that is. And so, I mean, I wrote that in the sleep notes. I was off on one a bit, trying to fill up a wall of text with, actually what I did there was, you know how you can get like a maybe a Tony Bennett album or a Johnny Cash album from the 60s, flip back vinyl, and there's sleeve notes on the back, and it will have the track list, and then there'll be a bit of text. The Beatles did it too, and it's just like some TV pundit who says,
his commentary on it.
It's like a weird kind of it really seems so strange and out of place now, and I'm a big fan of that. I thought that was really great, and so I kind of thought, well, who do I know that could write one of those for me? Just the sort of just some words to fill up a space. And then eventually wrote that, and it's just sort of meant to be kind of funny, but also, like you say, yeah, I mean, hero. What does that mean? Like, what are we saying? If I were to say, I don't know, let's say that Jason Molina is my hero. I mean, I'm a huge fan of his work, and I saw him live many times, met him a few times, got his signature because I was like a real fanboy. When he would play live and he would change the words slightly, I knew, and I've asked him about why he changed it, and he's been cagey. So, and his death was really sad, and it also was what it was. He was one of the lives that's possible to live, and he made some fantastic art. And I think that's about the size of it. I don't have any other connection with him. I don't need to associate myself with his friends or his family or his memory or his legacy. I don't want to sell my music by telling people that like his that they might like mine. They probably won't. I don't know. That's not for me. So I feel like the whole idea of what a hero is supposed to be for, and what I'm meant to do with it, and whether or not does David Bowie want there to be 100 new David Bowie albums every year? I mean, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. I think it's an interesting subject, though, and that's why I mentioned it, and why you did too. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, because I was also, I think it was you who said to me once on Twitter that nostalgia is a dangerous drug. And if it wasn't you,
God,
it was
I hope
somebody.
It was.
And if it wasn't you, I'm sorry to whoever said it, but it's a really cool thing to say. And this is one of the things that I think is really kind of important, and it seems important to you in your stuff as well, because it is about kind of breaking away from the past and breaking away. But then, we often talk about like making a new start and breaking away from things, and yet we allow this nostalgia to tie us with this sense of wishing for something else. And look at bloody society, many people wishing we were still living in the fucking Blitz or something. And it is a dangerous thing. But on the other hand, I think part of the human condition is that we look for comfort, and we look for comfort in what we've done and what has been before, in a moment where we feel like we remember that it was better or different or whatever it was. And it kind of it reminded me of the line. There's a line in the song Safe Mode, which is cut loose and hide away, pull the plug and pretend that you don't hear or can't hear.
Yeah. I mean, that's See, what's interesting there is that, again, writing that line, I meant it like brutally, literally. I meant I'm just going to sever this conversation, and then I know that there are going to be 1,000 messages on my phone when I look at it. So I'm just not going to read them. And that's not nostalgic. That's not kind. That's not anything. That's just That's the
Right.
arrogant, dismissive person who's not caring for what other people think anymore. But nostalgia is indeed a dangerous drug. And like, I can see how it's really so comforting to leave Rough Trade on Record Store Day with 50 new Bowie releases, new versions of the songs you love. But what about that kid from the estate over there who's just written a song which is as good as anything David Bowie ever did? What if they were worth the same amount? And what if we could find a way to get to that kid and to let them have a record on Record Store too? I don't know. I suppose that's my cover is a little nostalgic. Lots of people have said this reminds me of the glory days of Harvest Records, and it does. And I'm as susceptible to the warm temptations of nostalgia as anyone else. I'm not trying to position myself as sort of a spokesman against heroes, but I just think that it's a thing that, like, you compare it to the idea of Brexit. That's right. I think that I have relations who feel that way, and it's like, it's horrific. It's a terrifying thing that I wish didn't happen, and I can't find a way to get to those people and say that there's another way of thinking about the world when your horizon is like tiny, when you look at the few 100 yards in front of you. And when anything that's over here or over here is scary and different, and you should be afraid of it, then I don't think that anything good can come from that. But
I agree. It's
this world though, where like you spend all of your time like with this huge horizon, welcoming brilliant new things constantly and celebrating new stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's not possible. Maybe no one can sustain that.
Yeah, I think maybe in some ways it's tiring, and it's like, it's, I don't know if you're, I'm trying to think of an example, but let's say you were trying to eat in a new restaurant every day, and it was all avant-garde food, and it was all weird, and every single day you didn't know what you were going to eat, and you were trying something, and you were trying, okay, I might like this, I might not. There are times when you just think, what, I just could smash a burger,
You want a pot noodle, right, at the end of the week. Yeah. Look at something like Mojo and Uncut magazine. I have like a little bit of history with John Mulvey, the editor of Mojo, on Twitter, because I mean he spent a week saying, revolutionary stuff coming, guys. I'm going to announce the cover stars of this month's Mojo magazine, so hold on to your seats. Big, you're not going to believe this, sir. Take your head clean off. Okay, right, are you ready? I'm going to announce this. Talking Heads.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not against Talking Heads. They're
they're amazing, but
white guys
it's old.
who haven't made a new sound for a long time. I mean, it's not even Mark Hollis's solo stuff. Talking Heads. Now, why does that happen? Nostalgia. It sells magazines. John Mulvey says, look, I would put, I'd put Joanna Newsom on the cover. But like, no one would buy it. What happens is you go into Sainsbury's and you see Talking Heads and you're like, oh, my dad likes Talking Heads, I'll buy it for him. And like, if you want there to be print magazines that give 2% of their column space to Catherine Rudy or something, then you have to have Talking Heads on the cover. You have to have Bob Marley on the cover. You have to have David Bowie on the cover. And like,
but it does get very frustrating. I mean, I have to say, I love Pink Floyd. I'm a huge fan of Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath. But it stopped me buying those magazines because every single other month there's one of those three bands on it, or they do a retrospective, or they do a whole magazine dedicated to it, and I'm like, well, yeah, they're great, but what else is there to be said after 60 years? What more can you say about these bands that hasn't already been said 1,000 times? And it comes back to what we were talking about with nostalgia. I just feel like sometimes it's not about the worth. It's almost like if you've lived long enough to become an icon of nostalgia, then it's not about a value judgment anymore. It's just about people feeling confident, and people are like, oh, well, this band we're only great until I don't know, Roger left or whatever it is, and you just think, well, that's just a bunch of shite, really.
People like celebrity. I think that's part of what it is that the idea of this is like, so yeah, I mean, I know Pink Floyd's records. I've listened to them since I was little, played their covers in bands, and I'm not taking away from Pink Floyd, but like, they don't need to sell any records. They're like squillionaires now, and so I don't go in for the sort of the nostalgia trip there. But the reason people do, the reason that we care, that like David Gilmour just applied for planning permission to build a new greenhouse or whatever. Oh, that was Cliff Richard, wasn't it? It's because it's EastEnders. It's just neighbours. He's like Harold Shipman. No, the wrong Harold. The right Harold is being yelled in another room. Oh God, I'm not accusing David Gilmour of being like a mass murderer.
Of course.
He's not. That's not what it is. It's a great guitar player, and I love his music. But he doesn't need to be on the cover of Mojo. And what I think is that it's not Mojo that needs to change. It's that people, like, there can be comfort. You can have that. You can read an article about Pink Floyd, and you can remember when you saw them live in '78, and it was really terrific. And also, you know, there's a new album by a new artist that you probably like too. And I feel like that is not being serviced. Yeah,
but I think there's also the case that somehow I've found that, you know, there are people just get stuck at a certain point, and the only, you know, I have a lot of friends who, contemporaries of mine, who, you know, they loved heavy metal when we were teenagers, and they still love heavy metal, and I do too, and that's fine, but they've never listened to anything else either. It's not like they've gone out and discovered, I don't know, Gillian Welch or somebody like Iron of Fife or whatever. They just haven't, because they're still listening to, you know, what the Scorpions made in the 80s. And it's cool, but I do think, like, people, part of it is that there's just this block, and the music that you hear perhaps in your teens is that touchstone of all those feelings and the freedom and whatever it was, and even the angst that you had in your teens. And then nothing ever progresses after that.
You know,
I think that's really sad.
I don't even mean to criticize those people. I don't think I have a problem with a person who listened to the Scorpions as a youngster and still listens to the Scorpions now.
No, and I do it.
That's okay.
I don't have a problem.
I mean, same. Yeah. So I don't know. I what I feel like is that if I was the editor of Uncut Magazine, and I suppose the editor of Uncut Magazine would say that we do try to support new things, and we give away a CD every month that's got the Black Crowes on it, but it's also got a track by Daniel Mead, and that's really good. That's really, really good. And so, but though Daniel Mead has to stack shelves in a supermarket to make that record, and there's this huge disparity where David Gilmour owns the country and Daniel Mead works in a supermarket, and their music is similar. I mean, it's not actually, but like, you take my point. And,
but
if only there was a fairer way to fund streaming, then if Daniel Mead, because I don't want a £50,000 a year salary from making music. You know, 6 would be nice. I could pay my rent then. But I have to pay to do it at the moment. It's a weird economy.
Yeah, it is. It's really strange. But the reason I wasn't criticizing those people, just to be clear, right? You know, it was more like I think that's why, you know, that's why Mojo and Uncut do keep featuring those people, because that's why it sells, is because, you know, that many people they're not really that adventurous after that anymore, unless the music, you know, and that's not fair to entirely. But one of the things that's really cool, I think, is there's like a lot of young people I see, like National Folk Youth and stuff like that, who are just creating and coming up with stuff, and also discovering traditional music or different forms of music that aren't just mass produced bands that have been around for 70 years.
And I guess that's what things like streaming can do, right? I remember my brother, who's like 10 years younger than me, I remember the first time that we talked about, him and I talked about Radiohead. There's an example of some heroes, I suppose. And like, he was able to listen to all of their music all at once in one place. And he came out and said, "Oh, you know, I love that band, and Kid A is my favorite album." And I said, "Oh, I've never even listened to that one actually. Right, is it okay?" And he didn't have to go and buy it. You know, that's how I consumed Radiohead as a boy. I'm not really a boy, I suppose, but as I bought the Benz, I bought a computer, and I remember being kind of irritated that he didn't have to go through that. And that's a kind of a teenage childish attitude, isn't it? That there is an element of competition here, that these are mine and I'm going to define who I am by my association with Radiohead. And what Mark did, he came along and said, "Oh, I've listened to everything that they've ever done and I think they're really great and I like this one." And that was a threat to me. I remember being kind of incensed that it was so easy. Why didn't I have that when I was little? I mean, I'm 44, right? So it's not like this is particularly long time ago. But I guess if you take that and you expand it up, and you have a whole kind of planet of people feeling that in different ways, then it makes sense. And I don't mean that. I don't mean when I say fuck heroes that should be against either the heroes themselves or the people that have them, because I understand, but I just think that it is a dangerous drug, like you say. I don't know, well, like I hope I said, I might steal that.
I think one of the other things that I've been struggling with more in my own listening and my own sort of thoughts about music is that it's so Western centric as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just, you know, I was watching you know, some YouTube videos and just going down this rabbit hole of Senegalese and Malian and Rwandan musicians, and I just realized that, you know, there's just whole classes of music and of genius that I've never really dug deeply into, and that, you know, and I have dug to some extent into various African countries of their music, and Ali Farka Touré was one of my, you know, my heroes. But I realized that, you know, I've never really gone and searched out what's going on in Mongolia or even, you know, Sri Lanka or even Thailand or somewhere, you know, somewhere that people, you know, go. And that's kind of a shame that doesn't also come through. But I could, because it's on Spotify.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. I mean, that means what you're doing there is being a supporter, is pushing the boundaries of your own comfortable place. That's the opposite of nostalgia. And, you know, I think that's admirable. And I don't know anything about music from any of those countries, and I probably love it. And so, you know, if Mojo told me about it?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if they were on the cover? It would be so cool.
Yeah, I think so.
I would buy it.
I mean, I think that's the day that. You know what? We'll find magazines that do this. There are magazines who put bands you've never heard of on the cover. There's lots of sort of. I was going to describe them as new, but I mean, I noticed that gold flake paint has been around for 10 years, so they're not really new, are they? But they put bands on the cover that I don't know, and they write long, interesting, detailed articles about bands that I've never heard of, whose music I listen to because I read what they say and I like it. And they continue to do that. And there's 4 or 5 other people that I can think of that I have in the house right now who do that. So like trying to reach out into places that you don't know and say, will I find something interesting to listen to that's from Sri Lanka or from Glasgow? Is a thing that I think that, you know, I try to do in a tiny way. And I probably could do more, but I'm a lazy, selfish person.
I don't think that's the case at all. I think there are just limits, and you know, and it's always balancing our need for sleep and comfort, and doing a day job and being stressed. And sometimes you don't want to come home and push yourself. Sometimes you just want to, you know, have a banana and watch EastEnders. But I think that's okay too.
I'm a bit like that with music in the car. I listen to a lot of new music in my house. And yeah, I look forward every week to here's some kind of spectacular hypocrisy, to my Spotify Discover playlist. So it looks at what I listen to, and it says, here's an album you've never heard of and you might like. And very few weeks go by where I don't find something in there that I love and I go and buy. So, you know, that happens. But you know what, in my car when I'm driving around, which is like not at all right now, but there's like 5 or 6 albums that I like. I'm not going to tell you what they are because they're kind of embarrassing, but that's what I listen to in my car. Total nostalgia. I just want to like sing along.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this isn't supposed to be like a kind of an ideological thing to stand on and preach. I listen to nostalgic things that I find comforting as well. I'd just like to be able to travel and trade freely with Europe at the same time.
And that's that would be great, right? No, and you know, honestly, I think it's kind of a good thought to sort of start tying things up on. But all of this stuff comes down to, I think, being open and keeping keeping a humility, and also, you know, not believing that you or your heroes are better than anyone else. It's you know, it's fine to enjoy something, and it's fine to find, you know, beauty and joy and love and care in it, and that's okay. But it's also comes back to that, what I was saying about gatekeeping, is like no one has the right to tell you or anyone else that, oh, you shouldn't listen to that because you should be listening to bloody Led Zeppelin or something. And I'll listen to Led Zeppelin because I like them. But, you know, I'm not going to tell, you know, some 7-year-old daughter of my friend, like, oh, here's how you should get into music, when what she wants to listen to is Billie Eilish. That's fine. It's okay.
You're kind of, you're not alone, but that is not the way most people think about it. The kind of the prevailing wind in that area is that, you know, I think a thing and I'm going to tell everyone else that they have to think that too. And the thing that I might think is that, like, the new Bowie thing is better than anything that anyone else has done, and your 7-year-old daughter should listen to Led Zeppelin. If she doesn't, then she's just like a loser. And I can't put myself into that headspace. I don't understand why. Oh, I just said headspace. Jesus. What have I become?
Forgive yourself, Alec. It's okay.
Jeez.
I think on that note, we're gonna tie it up.
Be mindful.
Be mindful, and but you know, I think the great thing is that people like you are putting out music that we can discover, and I'm really grateful for it, and I really, really, really like the album a lot, and I like the songs and what they say, and I'm sure I'll like them for a long time and feel nostalgic about them as well, but I'm quite happy with that.
One of the things I'm working on at the moment is like taking compliments, and so I'm just going to say thanks very much, man. I appreciate it. How was that?
That's brilliant. You did well. Alec, thank you so much for your time and for your thoughts and for sharing this moment with me. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, man, as always.
Great. Take care.
Bye-bye.
The air is too thin to breathe, and the sky is so hard to leave. It's a shame I have to come down. I'd stay here circling round. Leave the surface behind. His scarred face only reminds me of the mess I made of my head. I'd rather be flying than dead. As turbines shudder and shake, leaving poisonous trails in my wake. horizon fades to black. At least physics and form have my back. Up in space made of silence, where natural science turns the world upside down. When the plane I'm on crashes and grants all my wishes, I'll come in too hard to drown. My approach is all wrong, to come down clean. The sunset's a wonderful thing to have seen. This pressurized atmosphere, sterile and stale. The signs all say I should stay calm and bail. For all of the forces of motion in lines, physics and form won't save me this time.